What's up, Otakus? It's your tour guide here. Man, oof, it's few days. Tomorrow's Christmas Eve. I'm officially like off for the next week or so. Um, and just reflecting back on 2024 and looking ahead to 2025. Very hopeful for 2025. Um, I know there are some things happening, you know, both here and around the globe, um, that, are causes for concern for a lot of people. And I don't want to, hey, what's up, fanboy? I hope you're doing well, my friend. I hope everything, you know, just wishing you the best, praying for your family, and wishing you the best, man. Happy holidays. And I'm just wishing you the best in 2025. We're gonna kill it. We're gonna kill it in 2025. We're just gonna rock the year, Superman style. Um, but this is a uh, very special session, otaku session, and we'll get into what that is in a moment. But as I was saying, there's a lot of things going on right now. Things may look bleak, but um, I think that's the joy of being a Superman fan. Superman is that symbol of hope. Um, represents really so many things in Americana culture, um, and but I think that the single most thing is that he's sort of a beacon of light. He sets an example for us to follow, and that is just to help thy neighbor, right? Um, do what you have in your power. Do everything you have in your power to help others and defend against evil. Um, Rather simple concept, but definitely think Superman. Given that now we're like anticipating this movie to come out, um, it's you know I just hope that message resonates with people who know the character, people who've collected Superman or have watched Superman movies throughout the years and have been fans of the character, and also for people who are maybe learning or being introduced to the character for the first time, because there is a little bit of a lapse. Everybody knows who Superman is, but they don't to what degree or how well or how popular he is. I think you will see a revival of Superman, even among the hardcore comic book fans, because there's a lot of comic book fans who just don't like Superman for whatever reasons. But I think, um, you know, hopefully this sort of uh, refocus on the Man of Steel will bring a lot of those people back into the fray and make Superman really, um, in my opinion, he's the best character. And I hope more and more people uh, adopt that mindset that he's the best superhero. He's the best character in comics. He has the longest legacy of any superhero character. He's the template for everything we currently like worship in pop culture in terms of comic books and um, American comic book superheroes. So this list is to kind of carry more of the momentum that's been building around just love of Superman. And I'm just happy to be living in this moment because I've been wanting to have my passion be everyone else's passion for a long time now, and I've been kind of just, preaching the preach, talking the talk, and it just seems like I was just talking to um, a wall. There were a few hardcore Superman fans, Fanboy Prime, Naman Young, um, you know, silver-haired Bronze Age babe. I mean, there's members in the community that just have this love for the Superman and the Superman family, and this legacy uh, that started in comics, but has really, it's pervaded every part of like popular culture. But more recently, I think the generation subsequent to my generation have kind of lost interest in the character for whatever reasons. There's a lot of other things to, of course, latch onto and be a fan of, and that's kind of what, I think where Superman is. He's just a victim of just a lot of things to kind of, you know grab your attention and get into. There's so many different titles, so many books, so many different things to enjoy. Um, but at one point in time, Superman was, and for the longest time, he was the character in comics. So he was the best-selling book in comics. He was the most popular character, um, and I just want to re-emphasize and kind of, hopefully we enter a new era where his legacy continues, in that vein, where he's on top. And I think we're very close. So, in that spirit, we are going to look at uh, notable firsts by some of my favorite artists, and these are like notable first uh, cover cover works. So let's talk about a book. Okay, comic book. We're going back to the golden age, back to the comic book that started it all for superheroes, costume superheroes, and that's Action Comics #1. This, of course, published in June of 1938. Um, Iconic covers. The Not only is it the most highly valued comic book collectible, I think at last auction it sold for what, 20 million, something ridiculous like that. No, it's like 18 million. Uh, and I think it was like an 8.0 copy or something ridiculously high grade. But there's not a lot of these available. There's just a handful of Action Ones that have survived and are currently like exist, right? Um, so I will never see, probably I will never even see an Action One, let alone own one. But I have this really nice reprint. It's the Loot Crate edition. This was reprinted, I think, back in 2000. It was reprinted, I think, in 2018 or something like that. Um, I like this. It's actually the full reprint with all the ads that just like you would have seen in the original comic books. So it's polybagged, and I got this cool Jim Lee signed certificate COA, with the Loot Crate edition. So that is that. Now, this comic book was written by Jerry Siegel and Joe Shuster, and it was like, we're talking the golden age, right? The golden age of comic books. All of the books from this age are very highly prized because just because of the time that's lapsed. We're approaching, these pulp magazines, pulp kind of comic books. Were really popularized at the start of the 20th century, and they grew in popularity, especially in like the teens and the 20s. Um, and it was, really before we had like sort of mass photography and like color. We didn't have color photography. It was like before color photography. It was like as like motion pictures were getting started, but really the thing that people had access to were newsprint, like it, like illustrations that were very, kind of realistic, but told stories and like, yeah, different genres of like westerns, war stories, love stories. It was is basically today's modern comic book culture, but it was it just had a larger readership back then. But of course, again, the time that lapses, books get lost, books get destroyed. Very few have survived because during the war effort, this is World War II, they actually had to recycle a lot of the magazines and the pulp for the war effort. Um, and so, everything was recycled, newspapers, cans, everything, metal like objects, rubber, all these things were recycled for the war effort and reused. And a lot of the books from that period, pre-war period, which includes this book here, were lost to time. And anyway, we want to focus on the people that have had the privilege of working on Superman. So obviously, it starts here with Jerry Siegel and Joe Shuster. We're going to focus on, golden age artists like Joe Shuster. There are only a handful of artists who had the privilege of, um, and we're talking about cover art. Now, a lot of people got to maybe work on the interior pages, but only a select few actually got to, basically immortalize themselves with a cover art on either Action Comics or Superman. And those are the two titles I'm going to focus on because they're the ones at the golden age legacies that we want to focus on. There's obviously a lot of Superman titles, like Adventure Comics, that goes back to the golden age. But Adventure really became sort of more of a Superman family type comic book, or things like, Lois Lane, Superman's pal, Jimmy Olsen. These are all like related Superman titles, but really the two titles that just focus specifically on Superman are Action Comics and Superman. Action Comics has a legacy count of over 1,000. One of the one of only two comic books that have a legacy count of over 1,000. That is Action Comics and Detective Comics. The one Batman is focused on Batman. Superman, its legacy count is at 822, I believe, and Batman, sorry, 800 what is it? 866, and then Batman's legacy count is at 921. So those are approaching 1,000, and they're also related to the two that have the plus 1,000 count. But if you're talking about the oldest legacy count, that is Action One. Okay, now that we've established Action One again, there's only a handful of artists that have had the privilege to be called, cover artists for either Action Comics or Superman. And, these names are just legendary. You've got Joe Shuster, you've got Wayne Boring, you've got Fred Ray, you've got John Sakella, right? These are just legends who worked on the book, and got the privilege of doing covers for this very popular comic book in the Golden Age. And then you move to the Silver Age, and you have artists like Kurt Swan, Murphy Anderson, Neil Adams. These artists kind of, especially Kurt Swan. Kurt Swan it took him almost a decade of working on the interiors before he got his shot to work on Action One. And Action One came to him via 1957 for Action 232. That's his first work on a Superman cover, Action 232. And, again, took him a decade to get interior work to really get it's kind of like you work in the minors, right? And then you get your call up and you get that first cover appearance. And then he never looked back. He basically held on to the cover artist position for both Action and Superman for a very, very long time. In fact, a lot of the stuff behind me uh, are Kurt Swan covers. I do not have Kurt Swan's first work on Superman, but I do have a favorite of mine, and that is uh, Superman 226. It's a Bronze Age book. It's one where Superman's exposed to red kryptonite, and he's acting like King Kong, climbing the Empire State Building there with Lois Lane, and this is just a great, uh, yeah, it's just a great cover by Swan. Love it. Love this book. Just love the colors, and again, he's got doing the King Kong pose. He thinks he's King Kong, and that's a legendary book right there. Um, so again, like we're talking about the some of the two fundamental things that have changed about comic books from when I let me just say while I was collecting during my collecting, you know, I guess time. I've seen two fundamental changes in comic books. Probably more we could talk about, but two fundamental things. Um, One is the distribution of comic books. When I was younger, comic books were distributed throughout newsstands. And what newsstands means is like they were just sent to like supermarkets or 7-Elevens or your magazine counter on the street, that sold newspapers and magazines and all that. It was, just a raw copy was put on a rack or it was put on some magazine rack or shelf, and you went there and you picked it up and you bought it. Um, so the newsstand distribution eventually made its way to direct distribution, which is like direct to comic book retailers, like your local comic book shop. And in that distribution, these books were, kind of sent in boxes and then put very, delicately put in bags and boards and put in like a comic book sort of box or, where you could dig it out and the condition would be preserved. So it transitioned from like, yeah, you read it, you don't care about it, you kind of just read it and you're done with it, and you don't con- don't take care of the condition to really becoming a hobby and more people collecting and then wanting to preserve the condition, which is why you've got these grading companies and it's like grade matters for collectors. And you saw the distribution rate shift from newsstand direct to direct and distribute newsstand distribution dying off. Initially it was like 90% newsstand, 10% direct, and now it's like reversed. In fact, I think I hear newsstand distribution is like 3% now, or at its lowest point was like 3%. What's up? Thanks, man. Oh, you're gonna enjoy this, man. Just if you can hang out, please do. You're gonna enjoy it and love to get your feedback on the books as well. All right, so we're gonna talk about. We just established that uh, it's a privilege, an honor to get to work on a Superman book. it's an even like you it's like I liken it to professional baseball, okay? Everybody wants to be called up to the minors. I'm sorry, everybody in the minors wants to be called up to the majors, right? You get the call, and the call to the majors is to work on a Superman book, like to draw the character or work on his story, like affect his history, his legacy, his outcome, right? Um, so that's to get to the majors. And again, there's only a few privileged few who have worked on the book. Okay. Um, and then there's the All Star game. Okay. The All Star game is getting to do a cover on Superman or Action Comics. Okay. And that's even a more limited roster of artists because, for example, Kurt Swan, he did every cover of Superman Action Comics for like 2 decades. When you're the guy doing it week in and week out, there's no chance for you to do it. Case in point, like you talk about Kurt Swan's peers. We're talking like Bernie Wrightson, right? We're talking about Jack Kirby. First of all, Jack Kirby was Marvel. He didn't even get an opportunity to work on it. We're talking about Joe Kubert. We're talking about the Carmine Infantinos of the world. Um, Carmine Infantino ended up doing 6 covers, uh, 4 for Action Comics, 2 for Superman. And his actual first Superman cover is actually infamous. It's the Flash versus Superman race, Superman 199. That is a legendary book, legendary cover. Um, but Infantino's first work on Action Comics is Action Comics 368, another great cover. Uh, and Infantino, up to this point, had worked on everything in DC. We're talking about like a legendary career from the Golden Age to the Silver Age. Um, he's done Batman, he's done Detective Comics, he's done everything in DC Comics except this book. But he eventually gets to do a couple covers on Action and again, a couple books on Superman for the cover work. And this is really, this is again his first Action Comics cover, Carmine Infantino, legendary artist, but again, he didn't get to do a lot of it. Bernie Wrightson got to do one Superman cover. Joe Kubert got to do one Superman cover. Um, not a lot of people. Jack Kirby, okay? This is another guy who's done everything in Marvel Comics. Got to do a lot in DC as well when he came over later on in his career. And one of the first books he wanted to do was a Superman book, but they didn't give him Action or Superman. They gave him Superman's pal, ex-pal, Superman's pal, Jimmy Olsen, and he makes he does the cover art for Jimmy Olsen 138 3, and it's Kirby Superman, and that's that. He did a few issues on this run, and then he would eventually do an Action Comics cover, but it's of the Demon, not of Superman. So we're talking like just a few Jimmy Olsen covers or actually he did the interiors as well. He did the interiors and the covers on a few issues of this Jimmy Olsen run, but that was that, you know. Um, but Kirby gets to do that because he's Jack Kirby. He can come to DC, he can pick any book he wants, but for whatever reasons, the DC people wouldn't give him Action and Superman. They said you could work on Jimmy Olsen, and of course, he got to pencil and write stories for Superman, which is, I think, for him ultimately was what he wanted to do at DC. Right, he comes to DC and he wants to work on Superman and gets that role. So Another artist, um, so, another artist that kind of exemplifies this point is Todd McFarlane. Todd McFarlane was the biggest Superman fan growing up. In fact, he has letters to this Superman mailbag, right? The what is it called? It's called like, I think it's just called Superman's mailbag. But it was letters that fans wrote in, the editors would respond to. Again, Todd McFarlane was in like a couple issues where he's like 10-year-old Todd writing in, talking about the character. He was a comic book fan that got him into drawing comic books and eventually a career in comic books. And, he got to do a lot of things at Marvel. He did do some work at DC for the Batman title, but he never got to work on Action Comics or Superman. And to this day, he doesn't have any notable works in either of those titles, let alone nothing related to cover work. The closest he got to doing Superman is in this book called the Superman Special, and the Superman Gallery. They're both kind of same versions of one another, and he eventually gets to live out his dream. Walt Simons is another great artist, but you know, to get the assignment for Superman, you not only have, I mean, just being a notable artist doesn't get you the assignment. You have to be able to draw Superman. And in my opinion, I love Walt Simonson, but his Superman is just severely lacking. Um, but this is as close as Todd got to doing anything Superman related. And that's the picture if you don't know what I'm talking about. And I don't know, not the best Superman work if you ask me. Um, Again, you gotta have. It's kind of like you gotta have in music. They say you gotta have the chops. You gotta have the chops to do jazz or to do Superman. If you don't have the chops, you can't get out of the kitchen, kind of thing. All right, so now we're going to kind of focus on my favorite artists. Up to now, Kurt Swan's a favorite artist, but he's not like one of my top artists. We're going to focus on uh, the people on my list, and we're going to look at some notable works, Superman works, and firsts by these artists. So we're going to start with the man, the legend. I think probably uh, I would say if we're talking about Superman legacy artists, Neil Adams is probably among the goats, to work on the book. And everybody will. There's sort of this like, everybody's trying to pin Batman as his legacy character, right? They're saying like, oh man, the Neil Adams, you know, run on Batman and Detective Comics. Actually, more Batman. Sorry, Batman was legendary, right? It reestablished the character's sort of darker side in the Bronze Age and the revolutionary. I don't disagree with all of that. But I honestly think if you look at the breadth of Neil Adams' work, it's definitely lies in Superman and Action Comics and Superboy versus Batman and Detective Comics. So if we're just talking about body of work, cover work, interior work, however you want to look at it, Superman is definitely uh, more attuned to that statement of legacy character than Batman is. And I have the privilege of owning some of Neil's first works on Lois Lane, Action Comics, and Superman. This is his first work on a Superman cover. That is Action Comics 356. This is a Neil Adams cover. Son of the Annihilator, Kid with the Super Fists. That is early, again, Superman work by the legendary Neil Adams. First work in Action Comics. Very key, noteworthy book. But if you ask me, there's so many great covers and works by Neil Adams, but my favorite cover by Neil Adams is this book right here, Action Comics 419. And it just captures who the character is. I think this pose, the smile, just the him coming out of this, just coming out of this like sort of dreary, gray urban setting, with the again the bright primary colors there, just says so much about this character. And yeah, this is just, I think, exemplary, one of the most iconic Superman images in the history of comic books. And it comes uh, courtesy of Neil Adams as a legendary talent. Action Comics 419. A book you want to own, book you want to go out and grab. All right. Um, the next artist we're going to feature, George Perez. Now, George Perez had about a decade's worth of work at Marvel when he first started. He was doing a lot of work at Marvel, a lot of work on the Avengers, different books at Marvel, and he eventually came to uh, DC, and he started doing books here and there. He's already sort of established himself as a name in the industry, and at DC he really got to flourish with some of the top talent in terms of writing, some of the top books at the time. And I don't have George Perez's first work in Action Comics, which is Action Comics 529. I don't have that book, but I have his very second book in Action Comics, which is comes almost a couple hundred issues later, almost 100 issues later, in Action Comics 602. Now Superman's not on this book, and there was just a period of Action Comics where they were trying to integrate different stories and different characters, and Superman was not the focal point of Action Comics. This is that period. But you still get this great Action Comics cover that's not Superman by George Perez. Um, then George Perez would make another little run on Action Comics. And in this run, he would be doing both the interiors and the cover art. And that run starts here on Action Comics 643. So this is actually his second Superman cover, and it's just a beautiful Superman 1 homage, but it's by a legendary artist reimagining the Action 1 cover, and it's brilliant. It's so beautiful. And this, again, it took George. I mean, he got the first Action Comics cover gig in 1981. That'd be almost 9 years or 8 years later till he gets another shot at the cover. And again, this is one of my favorite covers in the Superman covers in the collection as well. But for me, the notable Superman work by George Perez is Crisis on Infinite Earths, #7. And that is just legend. I mean, you talk about Superman, you talk about the death of Supergirl. This is sort of the kind of the moment in DC Comics during my collecting era, right? This series, this run, changed everything. This changed the path of DC Comics moving forward. Remains today one of the most legendary DC stories by Marv Wolfman and George Perez, who did the artwork. And yeah, for me, this is probably his most notable Superman work in comic books. By the legendary George Perez. And another great thing about this book is it features on the back cover the legendary DC toy line, these action figures. And I got Superman back here without the cape. He's kind of like paint's chipping off, but it's him. It's capeless, aging toy Superman. All right. Well, we're now on to my next favorite artist. All of you know Brian Bolland is one of my favorite artists of all time as well. And he had to start over in Britain, working for Eagle Comics. And he eventually got his break here in American comics and started doing stuff for DC. He would remain at DC for a very long time, being probably the one of the top artists at DC during my collecting era. And here in 1981, we get Bolland's first quote unquote Superman cover, but you don't really get to see him. It's all on the pages of Justice League of America. Now, Bolland wouldn't get to work on Superman until much later. And we're talking about 4 years later, 1985, he actually gets a cover stint on Action Comics. It's a sort of a one. I think he does maybe 2 covers related to this, but very short stint, but that's a great cover right there of Clark, like having a malfunction android Clark. Beautiful Bolland cover. This is his first cover work on Action Comics. Very notable. Bolland's another guy who's just done everything under the sun at DC. But in terms of his Superman and Action Comics works, it's pretty limited. But this is the first and one of the only. In terms of notable works on Superman, it actually comes here on this beautiful Wonder Woman cover. We get again mullet Superman there with Ball and Wonder Woman. Just a beautiful cover there, and my notable Superman work by Brian Bolland. Absolutely gorgeous stuff right there. That's a book you want to add to the PC. We just talked about Crisis, and it kind of reset the DC universe at the time, and they were it was time. It's kind of like you need to reinvent some of the older reinvent some of the established titles and characters, and kind of phase out some of the ones that just don't matter anymore. You can't keep. I don't know. I think I think a great example is Kazar, right? Kazar is like this prehistoric character, and he just doesn't fit in the modern times. So if you're going to bring him, you need to completely revamp him and change his setting. And but DC again kind of phased out certain characters and focused more on the characters that they wanted to kind of move forward with and that were more popular in terms of the titles at the time. Um, but probably the biggest, you know, obviously the character and the title they wanted to be most careful with was their top IP, which is Superman, right? And they were very fortunate because John Byrne, he's just a legend over at Marvel. Everything he touches at Marvel is just comic book gold. He works on um, the X-Men, then he branches out and starts to do you know different issues throughout the Marvel universe, but focusing mainly on the Fantastic Four, and then eventually starts something at She-Hulk there, and like he's doing a lot, like Alpha Flight. He's doing a lot of cover work, interior work, this and that, writing this and that. The guy's volume is just insane. He's just like a one man comic book creator, right? And anyway, they get Byrne to switch sides. He goes from Marvel to DC, and of course, they're going to give the new guy the best assignment, which is you are going to reimagine Superman for us and write a new sort of modern take on the character. And he was up for it. And I think right now, again, his work was sort of widely criticized at the time. Um, but I think in hindsight, people will now recognize, yeah, his Superman's actually, pretty legitimately what the modern our modern view of Superman is. Because Superman's another guy who just like had to graduate from, fighting Lex Luthor, you know, with his, transmogrifying, ray gun every other month, or battling Mr. Mxyzptlk uh, every other month, and trying to get the guy to say his name backwards every other month. It was just like becoming this sort of like, the Silver Age and the Bronze Age Superman just wasn't the best content for the character, because it wasn't going anywhere. It wasn't new. It wasn't refreshing. Um, so it kind of, I guess, got stale a little bit. So Byrne tried to reinvigorate some new energy into the character. First off, with some incredible artwork, and this is Byrne's first published Superman cover, and that happens on the pages of Amazing Heroes, not a DC book, but Amazing Heroes. We get a preview of what Byrne is wanting to bring to the character, and boom, right off the bat, got this incredible work by John Byrne. John Byrne's first work on Superman comes here courtesy of Amazing Heroes. And this would transition into really two sort of uh, channels. The first is Action Comics. He gets a little run here that starts on 584. Again, that modern take on Superman starting here, as well as starting here. So it should start here, right? Um, we talked about the two fundamental, or one of the fundamental changes, which was the newsstand distribution to direct distribution. The other fundamental change that happened during my collecting era, and this is a more recent change, is you had artists coming onto a book and they got to do that book for a long period of time. So, case in point, like Kurt Swan is a great example. Kurt Swan basically started his stint on Action Comics in 1957 and pretty much did all the cover work and related something interior or related to the book for nearly 2 decades. And he was the guy. He was the Superman guy, and he got to just work on it with no challenges, whatever. As long as he wanted to work on the book, nobody else could work on the book. You don't have that situation anymore, and this is the first variant cover that was marketed. You know, we're not talking like misprints or anything like that, or errors or anything like that. This is the first actual, like, we're going to make two versions of a cover. This is the B cover, the variant cover, and it comes courtesy of John Byrne, again in this reimagining of Superman, which starts out as a 6-part miniseries and then transitions into volume 2 of Superman. And again, this parallel Action Comics run that starts on 584. And you get this amazing kind of reimagining of the origin story. You get a modern take on Metropolis, all the new characters. They reestablished a relationship, the first meeting between Superman and Batman, and they help each other out in this series. Just a lot of good things that came out of this book. They established his roots in Smallville, even everything that you'd want to see from the old books, kind of retold in a modern story. And that this is really just sort of they reimagine and kind of retell Superman's origin every decade or so, add elements, subtract elements, keep up with the times, and that's all you got here. And then, volume 2, Superman just bursts forward, and we get uh, our modern hero, um, which has lasted to this day. Um, in again, Superman's gone through a lot of transitions in the modern period. He got married, he's had kids. His kids are now like, you know, fighting crime, dealing with, today's modern issues. So he's lots happened to the character, which is good. Um, the next artist I want to focus on is an artist who just entered my list this year, but of course he's just been one of my favorite artists of all, for a long time. And I just, as I got back into collecting, and I started collecting more and more of his stuff, and then I learned more about his background. The guy is like, just like Todd McFarlane, like I mentioned before, the guy loved Superman. Superman's his favorite character, like many of us of our generation. Superman was the character, right? That's the title you read. It's the movie you watched. It's just the toys you collected, whatever you want to say. And um, Alex Ross is not shy. He went through a sort of a kind of a rough transition because he moved, his family moved, um, from place to place, and he really kind of focused on art because he wasn't making friends at school or whatever, and he just got lost in his artwork. And for him, the DC universe, the DC characters were his like outlet, and he loved Superman, he loved Wonder Woman, he loved Batman, he loved all the DC characters. He started drawing them from a young age. His mom was also a very talented commercial artist, had a strong influence on him, and he kind of just knew early on that he's going to go into comic books. And boy, man, so this is his first work on Superman, and it's a cover. It's Kingdom Come. This is without a doubt one of the most, I think, talked about uh, comic books uh, in the past, but I'd say 2 decades, 3 decades since this book has come out. Just a great story. Yeah, it is an amazing book. I mentioned in a previous stream, that Superman, he's really just the archetype for Christ, right? Uh, he's he comes from the heavens, right? He's the last son he's the father's last son who was sent to earth to save the people of earth, right? Salvation, hope, um, really just a retelling of Christian mythology here through Superman, and that's what we get in this book. Superman just kind of like things get out of hand, and Superman just decide, and it feels like people have moved on from Superman, right? Like Superman doesn't matter anymore. Superman kind of goes back to the farm and kind of just focuses on like people don't want me, people don't need me, so I'm just gonna do my thing. And then he comes to realize, no, these superheroes that are out there today, they're not real heroes. They're just kind of like trying to be. It's so relevant to today's time, but they're just being like trying to be like social media influencers with their superhero platform, right? So Superman comes and just basically says, you know what? Let me go back to doing the hero thing. You guys go back to whatever you want to do, but you're going to fall in line. You're going to listen to what I say. And that is essentially what's going on in the pages of this book. Brilliant book. Again, absolutely iconic interior artwork, cover artwork by one of the today's modern legends, Alex Ross. Alex Ross is another guy who's just done everything under the sun for both DC and Marvel, and he will probably continue to do so for the rest of his career. I shared this book on a social media post recently. It's a book I just picked up. Again, shout out to Comics Limited, Travis, for trading me this book. It's a book I've been just really hoping to find like for in the dollar bins, but it never showed up. So fortunate to get in a trade. I did have to clean it up a little bit, but man, the lenticular looks so good now after cleaning it. And you get this great Clark changing to Superman and flying off Superman Forever. Now, this is a one shot, and Alex Ross does not do any of the interior work on this book, but it's this lenticular cover that for me is like one of the most notable uh, of his Superman works. And this is early on. This is not far removed from Kingdom Come. It's published in 1998, and he just gets this nice cover duty on Superman. Now, Alex Ross's first work in Action Comics or Superman would come in Superman 675, and this is his probably most iconic Superman cover. It's the Care to Step Outside, General Zod, but at dusk, right? At sunset. Like it's like meet your maker. Time to meet your maker, man. And it's kind of chilling actually, you know. Um, being on the if you obviously you're either in a building one or you're floating with him. Either way, uh, things are about to go down. But man, look at that cover there. Beautiful Alex Ross Superman cover there. Absolute must have for Superman fans or an Alex Ross fan. And if you're both like me, you get the best of both worlds. All right. The next artist, and Mike, you're going to appreciate this one. Um, they're just comic book is a medium that, I mean, you could be a great artist, right? You could be a great artist, but not every artist is going to be a great comic book artist because um, you just it's something either you have like understand and know innately, It's not something you can like. I mean, you can work at it. There's nothing to say that you can't work at it and get better, but it's something you have to have a passion for, and you innately just understand. And um, when you do get better, it's like you reach that level where, like, man, no one's touching you. No one can touch you, right? And there were just very few artists who kind of reached that status. And unfortunately, we lost this artist far too soon. But we've been blessed with a real body of work um, that fans of his can still go out and collect, and that is Michael Turner. And Michael Turner, this is his first work on Action Comics. It's Action Comics 812, just a beautiful like Tron light cycle there, but it's a super bike. Got this sort of Superman armor that's taken place there. He does a short run on Superman and Action Comics here on this storyline that runs for a few issues in both Superman and Action Comics titles, and then um, on Superman he gives way to another artist, which we'll get to in a few. Um, but yeah, you know he is well known for doing DC characters. Uh, he kind of really flourished during this period as a DC artist, and just gets so much of the top work at DC to do, like Justice League, to do Superman, Batman. Just they kind of give him uh, a lot to work with at DC, because they recognize this guy's going to be carrying us for a long time in comic books, so just might as well start working him, right? For me, the most notable Superman work by Michael Turner is, again, a variant cover. And that's the thing. We're talking about the two big transitions during my collecting era, one being newsstand to direct distribution, that change. And the other being from like an artist being established on a title and working a long, decades, to now artists that work the interiors not really getting much attention, and like a gajillion cover artists. You've got like 100 cover artists on a specific book at any given time. Just everybody and their mom doing the cover for a book these days, and that was a big change. And it started happening right around this period. But here's a great variant cover, um, Superman 205. Now, the A cover is by Jim Lee, and again, Michael Turner gives way on the Superman run. He does a brief run on Superman, then gives way to Jim Lee for Man of Tomorrow. Um, and but he gets the assignment of doing his variant cover on 205, and man, is that just effing brilliance right there, man. Effing brilliance. Oh man, that's just like I mean, just breathtaking. There's just no words to describe how incredible this cover is. It's homage to like Christopher Reeve. It's homage to like uh, the character in terms of what he stands for, and it's also Turner's unique style and take on the character as well. Brilliant. I got it signed. A signed copy. Love and life with that one. All right. And oh, the awesome man. There's a black and white cover of that. That is sick. I gotta see that. Um, all right, the next book is, we talked about legacy artists. I mentioned Neil Adams. Talk about the goats of Superman legacy cover artists, or just legacy artists in general, right? We're talking about um, minor leagues to major to all star game. So if you're doing Superman cover artwork, you're in the all star game, right? You've got the fans' vote of confidence, or at least the publisher's vote of confidence to do a cover that's going to sell books, right? Now that today means less. We have our established cover artists, right? Don't get me wrong. Everybody has their favorite artist, modern artist. Mine just happens to be Peach Momoko, but she's never done a Superman book. She probably never will do a Superman book unless she decides to go to DC, which I can actually see that happening because she's gonna get tired of doing the same old crap at Marvel. And at some point, Jim's gonna be like, "You want to come over here and do something for AAPI, Heritage Month and blah blah blah." And I could just see her. Well, I want to work on Superman, like and them giving her the book, but whatever. I don't think Peach Momoko Superman would actually knock my socks off, but it wouldn't hurt to see it first before I make that judgment. All right, so we're going to talk about this last artist, save the best for last. And he's definitely the goat of Superman legacy characters. And I think at the end of his career, if there's going to be one character that defines his career, it's going to be Superman, because he's mentioned it in interviews. It's his favorite character. It's what connected him to America. It's his immigrant story. He saw himself in the character being an immigrant. Um, as a lot, I think a lot of immigrants from the 30s and 40s, from the 20s to the 30s and 40s, growing up with immigrant parents, also that's why they love the character. Um, but yeah, and we're just talking about a body of work by the man who just incredible. So this is Jim Lee's first Superman work on Superman. And it's just a cover, and it's just awesome cover of him rescuing these children. I got the newsstand edition just to add the oomph factor. This is a 2000s newsprint cover, so this is like the rarest of rare in terms of distribution to ratio, like right direct to newsstand ratios. It's the highest of ratios, I should say. Um, so yeah, Superman Man of Steel. It's not a Superman or Action Comics book. It's the Superman the Man of Steel book, 119. But again, his first work on the character. Yeah, Crypto 2. This one will kill you. And Crypto 2, right? Boom. That'd be cool if it had crypto on the cover. No crypto though. Yeah, cool villain. This is the first of many Superman covers and works by Jim Lee. He follows this up with Superman 204, which is just iconic artwork on the run. So iconic, I got the statue. Um, that's also limited edition statue there. I'm letting it breathe because of all the hype and excitement around Superman. I am just celebrating the moment. The teaser trailer is getting all the bringing love to Superman as he deserves, and as I was hoping for. I was hoping Gunn's project would be just successful and bring everybody, have everybody joining the bandwagon. And so I'm officially pulling out the band with my wall here. But there's so many great Jim Lee Superman covers I mean, just so much that he's worked on over the past. Um, he's been with the company now about over 20 years. Not doing so much these days. He's more on the executive creative side, but every now and then we just got that absolute Superman cover, which looks dope. Um, but he's still doing variant covers. The Wonder Woman absolute cover looks super dope. That's the one I'd want to probably get over the Superman. But yeah, he's still doing stuff like that, cover artwork. He's going to be doing a conclusion to Batman Hush. It's coming up. That's something I got to get. But the guy has established himself as the DC guy. He's kind of like the new Stan Lee of DC, right? He's just kind of like the face of DC, like Stan was the face of Marvel, and I'm loving it. I'm loving it. As his biggest fan, just loving what he's doing with the character, with the company, and of course now DC Studios with the movies. It's going to be very interesting to see the ascent of Superman and DC, uh, you know, content. So that's exciting for me. I think the most notable work, or one of the notable works by Jim Lee on Superman, is again we talk about that legacy count. The first two of 1,000 Action Comics, 1,000, and Jim, being the head of DC, gives himself the the assignment that every artist wants. Every artist want, and there's again like 13 versions of Action 1,000 variant covers. I think there's 13 or 14 variant covers, but the A cover goes to Jim, and it's just a simple Daily Planet in the background, Metropolis in the background, Superman posing like he's the man with the cape flowing. Boom, iconic, iconic. And this is a book if you're a Superman fan, you can't own an original Action Comics 1, but you can own an original Action Comics 1,000. And that, my friends, is some knowledge on the my favorite artists, their notable works on Superman, their notable firsts on the work on Superman as well. Hope you guys enjoyed this content. Do me a favor, man. I'm going to be putting out more and more Superman content um, as we, you know, again march toward that July 11th release date. And I don't know about you, but I am super hyped, and I'm hyped that all of you are hyped from what I'm seeing everybody loving Superman, putting out Superman content, showcasing the books. I'm seeing haul videos now with Superman books now. It's, you just never saw that. Now you're seeing like established collectors and YouTube channelers like going to the LCS and hunting for Superman keys, hunting for Superman books and trying to flip them and sell them and getting, just it's just like who cares if it's just a phase? I'm hoping it's something longer lasting that reestablishes the character as the the top of the food chain in terms of heroes, because that's how I view them. And I'm just really hoping that this momentum continues, the movie's successful, and that there's people understand. Boy, why didn't we love? Why didn't we have Superman as one of our favorites before? Like, question that. Like, why is Spider Man? Why do I like Spider Man more than Superman? Really question it. Like, don't just like. I get you watch this maybe a Spider Man movie or read a comic book or something, and he became your favorite character. Fine. I'm not trying to like change your mind there, but question why that is. Because when you read Superman, you watch Superman, and you start like looking back at his history and legacy and understanding who the character is, maybe you will come to term like a different land on a different outcome of, or just reevaluate, like Is Superman my new favorite character now? Yes, right? He's your new favorite character because your old favorite character just doesn't live up to the Man of Steel. So, um, words to leave you with for you to reflect on. I'm not trying to shame you or like do anything like that, but just understand like Man of Steel is back. Get on the locomotive, or because you're not faster than the locomotive, so you might as well just get on the locomotive and let Superman drive you drive you home. All right. Rad art and comics. I just got my first Mark Spears on Action Comics. Nice to hear, man. Nice to hear. That's what I want to hear. That's exactly what I want to hear. And to again, all my fans who are Superman fans already, um, this is our time to shine. This is our moment. We don't have to like make excuses for ourselves anymore. Just like, just hold your head up high and let that collection shine. All right, guys. Thanks for watching. We'll see you in the next one. My next list will be, uh, it was going to be top 10 Batman books. I'm not going to mention Batman at all. My next list is going to be top 10 Superman family books and then top 10 Superman books. So those lists are coming. Stay tuned. We'll see you in the next one. Peace out.